My name is Manuela Moreno.
Good evening and welcome to all those in attendance. We're going to get started. It's 5 o'clock. This is a special board meeting, in particular a work session. Today is Wednesday, October 16th. We are in October, finally. And it's 5 p.m. I call this work session to order. Mr. Secretary, will you please take roll?
President Marcus,
Present.
Vice President Gonzalez,
Present.
Member Montes,
Present.
Member Garay,
Here.
All right.
and I am here.
We do have a quorum. Go ahead and stand up for the pledge and we'll salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Thank you. Before we begin this board work session, I would like to state that the board work session in general is a venue for information to be presented to the board. And board members, please, if you have any questions, you are encouraged to ask. And I believe this is a work, and we can make some recommendations. I believe, I'm not sure. Very honest, I haven't met with Mr. Chavez, so I don't know exactly what information we're going to be covering, what's different from our last board meeting. But we are here for a work session and to gain information and make recommendations. And also, we will not be taking any action during this work session. And we're going to get started. Mr. Chavez.
Okay, we're here for this work session. It's a quarterly work session to present data. That's quarter, based on the first quarter. And what we had decided was that we would present BOY data. And so it's all the beginning of the year data, and most of the data was taken in September, but we do have some information that we'll be presenting that was taken in October, I think, specifically to the high school, if that's correct. Is that correct, Ms.?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to be presenting the data. You've got hard copy, and Isaac will be also presenting it electronically. And so it'll be on your monitors as well. So I'll present the data. Principals are here to stand for questions. If you have any questions as to, what they're doing to address, the information that's presented in the data. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to give the board an idea of where we stand as far as, the beginning of the year. Of course, in the second quarter, we will present 2 data points. So you'll have BOY and MOY. And so, but for right now, it's just BOY.
Okay. And then at the last board meeting, that was
summative.
Some that's still embargoed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we're still waiting for the official results of all that.
Okay.
So, okay. All right. So this is all formative interim assessment data. And so let's just get right into it in the first page. And the first page is this is iStation Math. And this is for kinder through second grade, both Garfield Elementary and Hatch Elementary BOY in September. This was taken in September. And so with the 2 combined schools, you'll see our different levels. And we do have with iStation, as you all are familiar, there is 5 different levels. And so specifically, we're looking at, as far as proficiency, is level 4 and level 5. And then as one of the goals that the board has set, we're also looking at level 1 and to move kids out of level 1. And so these are percentages. And so this is what principals have been working on as they continue to move through their PLC time. And is in regards to math, all of our teachers are currently involved in math professional development that we partnered with CES. We do have one trainer that is focused on elementary, and the other trainer is focused on secondary. And I believe both groups of teachers, elementary and secondary, have been through 2 rounds of training. Is that correct? Yes. Two rounds of training, and we have another 2 rounds to go. And so it'll be ongoing for a total of 4 sessions that they will be involved in professional development. Something hot off the press that I'll be talking to the principals that I just learned today is that the SWREC will also be providing some math professional development. And so we'll see if teachers are responsive to that and principals are responsive as well. So we don't want to overwhelm them either, you know, and so we want to do whatever's going to work. But and so the professional development that's going to be offered through the REC, I believe it's 5 sessions, and I believe they get started in December. And so it's something to think about. And I'll be discussing that with the principals more in the next week or so. Okay. So you see kindergarten, then you see first grade, and you see second grade. And this is kind of where we're at. We expected, you know, as far as proficiency to be low, because we're actually assessing on standards that are grade level standards. Okay. And so the hope is that from BOY to MOY to EOY, that you will see a progression of proficiency and a decrease in level 1.
And this is the math, correct?
This is math. Yes,
And
the
it's-
first page is math.
And is it still only in English? Is that correct? For
It's
math?
still in English, correct? Yes. Yes.
And how aligned are they to our standards?
You know, there's still a lot of talk about that.
Okay.
I understand that there's still this is still being piloted.
Okay.
And
But
so
that's where
we're not really
required
sure.
to.
One of the things that we've talked about is the cliff that we're experiencing from second grade to third grade. And so as you know, we're going from one assessment to a totally different assessment. So one of the things that we'll be exploring is expanding the use of iReady, which we use currently for 3 through 8, and lowering it down from kinder so that we can have a kinder through 8 and give us really good data, because that one is more aligned to the standards.
And are we still using happy numbers?
We're still using happy numbers as one of our formative assessments to give us some data. That's not presented here.
Yeah. So maybe next time, I don't know if that would be more representative of what our kids can actually do. I kind of remember if our kids did better on happy numbers, because it also is in Spanish, but it's more aligned
Correct.
to, I'm
Correct.
not sure.
Sure.
I'm not.
Amy
Yes.
and go ahead.
You're correct in saying that, and the innate results for happy numbers is more aligned to ins, but it's also very well connected to your breakdown. So
Yes.
like you said, it is a better representation of data. Currently, right now, iStation, it's still it's still in English. You know, it's piloted, still in Spanish. We have a backboard getting to look at that data, but it's not disaggregated the way
Okay.
we do the
Yeah.
now. So it's a little tough to kind of,
Okay.
where we can place students.
Okay, thank you.
The next page is reading, and what you'll see here is you'll see iStation data, but this time you'll see it across from K through 5. And so, and while the iStation is assessed in the lower grades, because Rio Grande Elementary is a school in need of improvement designated, they are getting special support and structured literacy and letters training. And so with that, they require that the school also assess in iStation. And so they do have a reading coach that works with them. And Mr. Casillas, the reading coach is with you once a month, twice a month?
No, she's with me twice a month. She meets with the teachers during the PLC once a month, and then she gives some feedback once a month, and then her and I meet twice a month. to come up with strategies, she'll do her observation, I'll do my observation, and then we'll sit together so that we can kind of troubleshoot together the next step in overcoming the struggles that we notice in the classroom through the observations and whatever we find in our data.
So one of the things that we're still seeing, and this is what's been interesting to me, is iStation across through grade 5, because we're still experiencing using the same test, the same program. We're still seeing that cliff from the second to third grade. And so we continue to see that, and having the extra support is really going to help. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what'll happen there. The bottom half of that is the Spanish, lectura temprana. And what you'll see also is especially in the upper grades in 3, 4, 5, the red is not as big, but it's still a concern. But I think it goes to language and language development, and one of the things that I know Mr. Casilla is working really hard on is really assessing kids in the language that they're going to be most successful in. And so that's one of the things he's really looking at to see how we can utilize that. But in the lower grades, we're looking pretty solid. I think we're in a good place. I think we're starting off the year in the lower grades. And so I'm hoping that we'll see the same kind of results that we saw last year in the lower grades. Amy and Luis, do you have anything to add to that?
Just agreeing with you, Travis, I think we're starting out pretty solid as far as GS is concerned. Teachers are really doing these efforts to hold what we call the bubble kids, because they usually miss anywhere between 1 and 6 points into the next level. So I have asked them to concentrate on them and pull them up and still focus on the lower tier, the level 1 red kids, because those need more one-on-one intensive intervention. And so hopefully it'll all gel together. I've seen some movement already in the October progress monitoring from September. So the progress is happening. We do have kids that are still in the red, but the trend line is still going up. So as long as the trend line is moving forward, we're spot.
Yeah, during data day, we looked at results from August data compared to October. So we looked at the whole quarter and the progress made in that quarter. In our iStation reading, I know that the goal set forth by the board was to decrease level 1s by 25%. We decreased it school-wide by 15% already in that first quarter.
Awesome.
And then we increased proficiency by 90%.
Cool. And I have a question for Mr. Casillas. Those that took the temprana, are they gonna be taking the state assessment in Spanish? Is that those will take it in Spanish, except for the 5th?
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no.
Only if they qualify, they're able to get a waiver for them. So when we take it at the end of the year, when we take the mess at the end of the year, if they have been here 3 years or less without needing to make it, so they have to take it in English. But just in the past week or so, for 2 weeks, I've had 2 students that have been withdrawn because they're seasonal workers and they'll be in here for, from March to about September, then they leave. So those kids will qualify to take it in Spanish. The other students will take it in English. But I do want to mention that one of the things that I do know, even from me being on ELL, obviously I learned Spanish first, is I know we would like to see this trajectory even at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, but it's impossible to see that trajectory for they grow so much because of the language barrier. So our focus is to get them ready so that when they get to middle school, they are able to make that progress. And it's not that we're not going to make it now, but our results are not going to show in the test till they get to middle school, because we're doing a lot of bridging in math and we're doing a lot of bridging in ELA, so that students we're basically looking at how vocabulary affects their ability to read and to learn, because now they're not learning to read, they're reading to learn. How the vocabulary affects that, because according to our data, the foundational skills that the students are lacking, and that's not to blame the schools below us, because they're addressing the struggle. we continue that effort to bridge the languages to make them, as you know, when you're learning a second language, it's 0 to 3 years, you're kind of like in this silent period where you don't get to use it because you're ashamed of the way you sound when you speak and you can't formulate, or structure the language so that you can sound intelligent or that you actually make sense. So kids spend that silent period, and that's where we get them in second, third, fourth grade, they're still in that silent period, it says about 3 to 5 years. They're in that silent period, or up to 5 years, they can be in the silent period, and then they can reach fluency at 7 years. So we're not gonna see that increase that we would like to see. Nonetheless, we're addressing that in the classroom through a lot of vocabulary work and a lot of reading and writing. So that when we send them to middle school, we can facilitate that transitioning into the moving up. And so just to answer your question, if they qualify for the test, they will be able to take it in Spanish. But even if they don't, regardless, we're the way that I'm meeting with staff is no excuses. We're gonna find a way to move the kids up, and we're using data not to feel bad about where we're at, but to find out where we stand so that we can, there's only room for improvement. where we're at.
So the waiver can be for an additional 2 years after third grade?
Yes.
So out of those 42 kids in third grade, are all those 42 gonna take it in the ones that were tested in Spanish and ISIP, will they take it in Spanish?
It depends if by the time they're with us, I don't know what time they came to the US, so if let's say some kids came in February, and by February they've been here more than 3 years and they haven't left the US, then they won't be able to take it in Spanish, so basically it's,
Okay.
I don't have that information honestly, but we are going to take advantage of whatever waiver the state.
So they don't
provides us.
allow additional 2 years anymore?
They still allow
Oh.
the additional 2 years, yes.
And
So-
another question would be, if these kids are taking it in Spanish and may not take the state assessment in Spanish, are they also taking the ISIP in English? So they have that opportunity to kind of do both and see.
Start thinking.
Yeah, so these 42 for third grade, is that included on these English up here on the top, like the third graders? No, yeah, is that what's happening? These kids have the opportunity, like these third graders took it in English and Spanish, is that correct? Or is that? No, for third grade, for Rio Grande.
Yes, they do.
Oh,
Yes,
awesome.
yes.
Okay, good. No, that way they have, no, that's good. That's so that way they have the opportunity to. Okay,
So the English, Spanish language is not preferred amongst our students, or are they too young or?
well, it's just how are they gonna best demonstrate their knowledge? That's what I would wanna focus on it. Yeah, I mean, so that's how are they gonna best
How
demonstrate?
would they feel more comfortable?
Yes, or
English, Spanish?
best demonstrate the teacher thinking he's gonna best demonstrate their knowledge in this language versus this language. That's what
Yeah.
really, yeah.
And it is, it's like a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that we want to take advantage of where the kids feel comfortable, right? Where they're going to score the best.
Or
You
they're
know, to
gonna perform
demonstrate
the
their,
best.
where they're gonna perform the best.
Yeah.
But we also know that there comes a point where they no longer can take it in
Can't
Spanish
take
and
it.
they're gonna have to take it in English.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where our teachers are having to make sure that both languages are being developed. And as we move forward, especially our kids in our dual language programs.
And Mr. Marcus, if I may, so the difference between the 63% of students who scored in red, that took it in English versus 26% that took it in Spanish and only 26% of them landed in red, that's a difference of 37%.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and so that's a huge difference. So if we can get the 37% of students to take it in Spanish, we will take advantage of that, because that's.
Yeah,
And when you have, like in fifth grade, we only have about 70 students. Out of the 70 students, for 37%, all you need is like 15, 18 students, and that ruins your data. And the students are making progress, just
Yes.
unfortunately not in English. They're still learning and thinking in Spanish. They're not at the point where
that's
they
their
can
knowledge. Yeah.
think in English yet.
No, that's good. Yeah, no, that's good. Can click that. Thank you.
Okay, the next page, we actually look at the specific school data. And so the first one here is on Garfield, for Garfield. And it is for reading. And so you got it broken down by grade level again. And so you have the English on the top and the Spanish on the bottom. And so I know that we've got it's a small school, and so you know, percentages, you know, it could be, you could be talking about one or two kids, right?
Yeah.
And so, in this case, percentages can be a little deceiving, but Mr. Mesa, can you shed some light on that?
Sure, on the English, if we look at the ICP English. This is September data. Since October, it has improved some, but this was back in September. I think we're off to a really nice start in kinder, kind of split evenly. There is no level fives at this time. In October, we did gain some level fives. And that's in kinder. In first grade, there's only one, that 100% is only one student, where the rest of the kids are ELs. So they've maintained it where they've been, where they're currently at. Second grade, it happened in thirds for them, with no level fives or level threes. But the October data, it's just has spread itself out. We've got a majority of level threes right now, including with a lot of them moving out of levels. They've moved from level 4 to the level 5s and stuff. So it looks really promising. So right now, as far as the lectura temprana, you can see these ELs are just rocking it.
Yep.
Kinders are just right out of the gate. And there has been some movement there. We had a little bit of backpedaling, you know, from the level 4 in October into, but no one went into red. You can see first grade, excellent. Again, it's split. We did get a back pedal in the red for October, but again, what I've noticed in the data with our staff is that it's been pretty stable. It's been pretty stable for the most part. Again, I have asked teachers to focus on those bubbles, find out, do those deep dives, because we've done them. And it's either a time thing, they run out of time, and remember, iStation is adaptive, so if they don't answer it, it drops, it lowers the question. If they answer it, it gives them a high question. If they answer that one, it gives them a high question. If they can't answer that, so it's constantly doing this. Not a fan of iStation, but it is what it is. But other than that, I think we've been really doing well. We've seen some really good progress. Second grade has been doing wonderful. So this year, just really quick, all of our teachers, I only have one kinder, one first and one second, and they're doing English. So they're doing both English and Spanish. So we've had to find a way, this is a conversation that we've had in PLC, those kids that are in English, that all they've known is English since kinder. And here we are, we're immersing them, right? It's kind of the inverse of what we do with little kids. So teachers were worried because they're gonna go up to Mr. Casillas. We still have to maintain the English that they have their foundations in. So they're learning the Spanish, they're, you know, working with their peers and with the teachers, but we've kind of set aside, you know, time where we can still build on those English foundations, because we are running the 80-20 model, right? So we're doing the 80-20 kinder, 70-30 first grade, and then 60-40 in second grade. The bigger percentage is being taught in the L1, which would be Spanish, right? Or in that English, just, you know, and then the lower percentage is being taught in the content areas. So we're hoping, in this last PLC, we were talking about that. So we're hoping to really kind of streamline it more, where it's kind of like a full dual immersion, because the kids are progressing, and it's wonderful to see some of these little kinders not a lick of Spanish, and they're just jumping in with both feet. And I mean, it's a system that works, and Mr. Chavez speaks to that. Kids who have that duality in language do tend to perform better. You know, and I see it in the kinder class in particular, because they're starting to read, you know, those little cyclic books, and they read to each other. So progress is happening, but we have to maintain the second graders, especially because, as Mr. Casillas shared, at kinder, the second is learning to read, third is reading to learn. But we also have to be mindful that we have a select few kids, all they know is English. And here we are, we put them because I only have 5 English here, so I had to kind of spread them out. I don't think, you know, we couldn't have one teacher for 5 English kids.
Do you all continue building on it, even if they're just English speaking? You continue building that language? Okay.
Yes, we have to, Mr. Montes, I mean, because if not, it would be a disservice to them.
Right.
You know, we did it just for classic, you know. I mean, I don't think one teacher had a salary for 5 English kids, you know, so we have to make do. And so we all agreed, and I called parents and they were on board, and so they agreed, but I told them that we were gonna continue building on their English language skills. So to answer your question, yes, we have to. If we don't, it's a disservice. So that.
Right, even if they're young, I mean, start building on articulation, all those.
Right, and then after a while, that language acquisition device that they carry in their head, which allows them to sort languages, eventually that window starts to close. So it's either English or Spanish, but if they can do both, that's even better.
Do you by any chance know the number of students that took the lectura temprana in first grade?
Actually, let's see here.
14.
14 kids in first grade? Or is
Yeah,
it,
that's what I have.
what are you doing specifically with your first grade to address that issue right there? Because you have 14% proficient. That is your grade that is struggling the most.
The first grade?
Yeah.
So I have a number of people in there, Mr. Gonzalez. I have our librarian and our PE coach who have downtime. They go in there and they're separating, we're using that MLSS process, so we've separated. So Ms. Ferrales will focus on the lower tiers, and then Mr. Cardona is focusing in the layer twos. And then Ms. Salinas is focusing on the rest. You know, of course, Ms. Ferrales is leading this. She has plans accordingly. She collaborates with them and they just, you know, separate and then they do and then they come together. So I am also encouraging, Ms. Ferrales is really good about this. She's been at it for a while. So she's also doing small groups as well. So there's a lot of extra time that they're using that I've given them, you know, so they're plugging in any type of intervention, like wind time we have pretty much every day. And that's either through, they can do AR, they can do iStation, anything that's focusing on that reading component. But we're also doing the same with math because reading is part of math now. So we're also looking at addressing a lot of things like academic vocabulary, being able to think critically, you know, and being able to sort out. You know, because we still have some kids that are still on that, like learning the phonics and the beginning of awareness and all. So we have to build those gaps up. That's why in our dash plan, we decided to focus on layer 3, providing those intensive interventions, whether it be one-on-one or small group, but also focusing on the layer 2, because those are the ones that they get it, but there's holes. So we're wanting to close those gaps. So that's why we're doing those deep dives to identify where these gaps are. Because you can have a kid at level 4, but they may be a level 1 in vocabulary or phonemic awareness, you know, or you may have a level 1, right? And they're 1 across the board. And so I did that my first year, is we really focused on those gaps and what we had to focus on, and that's what we've been doing since.
Wow.
So.
I would just, I was gonna give a kudos out, especially for kinder, those pre-K teachers. I mean, just, I peeked ahead and they always do an excellent job preparing our kids for kinder. I mean, that program, I'm so glad that we have that whole day and it's awesome.
And you know,
I'm very fortunate.
I thought we were going to present the convention individually because I was going to share the pre-K data.
Oh, yeah, they're,
Because during day-to-day, I have the pre-K girls team present. They were phenomenal. As a matter of fact, I would love for them to come up and present to you guys.
That would
so
be
that
awesome.
you can
That
get
would be awesome.
that gist of what
we're
goes
very
into
fortunate.
pre-K.
Right.
I mean, I realize there's a reason they play with Play-Doh. It's not because we need shoes, right? There's a reason why they're cutting and painting. But I also learned that the ECOG, the Early Childhood Observation Tool, also is assessing them in English, in math, in science.
Yeah.
And when I started looking at those essential indicators, those line up with the main standards. So even at pre-K, they're getting a pre-foundation of what's expected of them when they go into standards-based learning. Because I always thought when they're done with pre-K, the EIs go away and you get standards. I realized that's not true. It actually is there. It's just masked and applied differently, but it does roll over into kinder.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to send you the pre-K data, but I really think it would make more of an impact if you guys allowed it to come up.
Oh, yeah,
and present.
Yeah.
It was
that's,
phenomenal.
they do an excellent job. Those kids are ready to learn, ready to go.
I was just gonna mention that another thing that we're doing to address reading is we're participating in the high impact tutoring program. And so in fact, I think our teachers are there now, right? Currently up in Albuquerque. and get them trained on that. And so it'll be a 6 weeks program that'll go from November through December. Is that right? And so we're hoping that that'll have an impact. And it's the same kind of program that we had teachers and students go through in the summertime. And so it's just, we're trying to take advantage of whatever is offered that we can take advantage of that'll help our teachers and help our students. So,
Mr. Chavez, if I may add, from RGE, we sent 9 people to the training, including the secretary, the librarian, 2 teachers for 3rd grade, so that not because this is gonna be taught after school. So I'm communicating with parents with those very low performers so that they get this support during the school day, and they also get it in the after school program. So we're trying to do, as we identify these goals, we're trying not to patch it, but to give the kids the foundational skills that they need. Because one of the things that we know from kids is that when they are being successful in decoding and they're able to now read to learn, they start building that self-esteem. And you know how it is, when you feel competent about something or you feel good about something, you absorb it quicker and you become better at it. So we're building the skills, helping the kids build the skills, not only so that they become better readers, but also because it's gonna raise that self-assurance that's gonna push them and make them feel good about who they are. And you get somebody feeling good about themselves.
Oh, I hope not.
You get them feeling good about themselves, then they start believing in themselves, and that's what happens with testing. If you have a test, and if the kids are not feeling good about themselves, even though they may be higher performers, they're gonna score low because they didn't feel good. But when you get kids to believe in themselves, then the scores go up, they go up drastically. And so that's what we're doing at the middle school, giving them, or at the middle school, at the intermediate school. I don't know what you're doing in the middle school. At the intermediate school, we're giving them the support during the day, and then now I'm meeting with parents with those bubbles kits that Mr. Mesa's talking about, so that they get that support during the day and then they get it in the afternoon. So we're really pushing our kids, but it's not only academics, it's about being happy about the program, the school that you belong to, and feeling that pride that, you know what, I'm gonna grow and I'm gonna be proficient by the time I get into those. We're gonna see some progress this year, at least in RGE and all the schools, but I know that at RGE, when I talk to teachers, we're feeling very confident about what we're doing.
and I just want to mention again, thank you for sparking my memory, Mr. Casillas, with the high impact tutoring. Because we couldn't focus on our teachers to do it during the school day, they had to get creative and find teachers outside of the classroom, the core classroom instructors. And so, as Mr. Casilla has mentioned, he's pulling every staff member that he can that is interested in helping us out with that. And so everybody from librarians to EAs to just everybody that's not your typical classroom teacher.
Yeah,
And
the
so-
janitors didn't want to participate, but I tried.
Darn it.
Darn it. They had to.
Okay, moving on to the next page is Garfield Elementary for Math iStation. And again, we're talking very a small population of kids, but Mr. Mesa, could you shed some more light on this?
I'm so sorry, Mr. Johnson, what were you?
iStation Math.
iStation math, okay. So iStation math is, for Garfield is a little tricky. So this is September. I looked at October's, again, because I was going to present that, but we have many things, not a whole lot. The red really hasn't budged. The gains have been minute, but considering that it's an English test and these are bilingual kids who took it, kinders and second, they didn't do too bad, And what concerns me is the first grader who is English is in red, And there's not, and another thing, I apologize for this, I should have followed up, but I don't think the rest of the first grade took that English test in September, but they did in October. So, just to let you know.
And just to reiterate, I would just like to see happy numbers along with this, kind of get it true, because I like it is, because it's all in English, and I just,
Okay.
well, that's the best representation.
Can I elaborate on the numbers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Here. So what we're looking at, and I'll be more than happy to send it out to you.
No, you can just, yeah.
Yes. So what we're looking at is in kindergarten. What was really impressive about happy numbers is that in comparison to last year, at the beginning of the year, we had a lot of kids who were far below. This year, not as much, which really surprised me. We ended up with 4 kids in kinder through second in exceeds.
Wow.
That was like, wow, that didn't happen last year. And then we have a total of 9, 10, 11, 12 that are meeting at their grade levels. 5 in kinder, 4 in first, and 3 in second. And then we have below, kinder's 12, grade 1 is 9, grade 2 is 10. And then we have far below at grade 1, 2, and grade 2 is 6. Now, the trend that we noticed last year, and I think Ms. Marquez also experienced this with happy numbers, is we saw that progression go right, because that's what we wanted
Yes.
to go right. And so by the end of the year, I'm not sure what Amy's, but we have the major majority of our kids in meets and exceeds.
And that blue and dark blue.
Well, that's why I really prefer happy
Yeah.
numbers, as you say.
Yeah.
In regards
Like-
to iStation, because unhappy numbers is also diverse and differentiated, because you can choose the language. It goes back to the question that you
Yes.
were asking, Mr. Garcia, so I think it really lends itself. I don't know if you want to speak to yours in your.
Yeah, I have it in here in front of me too, because happy numbers only does beginning, middle, end of year, so we have the beginning of year data here. For kindergarten, there weren't any students that tested far below. 74% of them tested below. That was 51 students, where the remainder of them tested in meets or exceeds. And then first grade, we only had 13% in the red, far below, 57% were below. And then 24% were meets, and just like 3 of them were exceeds. Second grade is where we're experiencing more in the red, so 45% of kids tested far below in second grade, and then 30% below, 12% meets, and 13% exceeds. Which is a little bit better data than iStation now still.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely by far.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we've got Hatch Elementary, the next, and we've got reading, iStation. At the top, we've got English, and the bottom, you've got Spanish. And again, getting off to a good start. This is September data. And as you heard Ms. Marcus talk about, they started actually in August, and so they've been progressing and looking, but we chose September because I believe that's where Mr. Mesa, if you can confirm this, when the state's looking at September data. So so Amy, would you like to elaborate a little bit on what you guys are seeing?
I think for the most part, both English and Spanish classrooms are doing well. Kindergarten bilingual classrooms just kind of blew it out of the water, out of the gate, like Mr. Leslie said, very few red kids there. 66% of the lectura kinder was proficient, so that's more than half of the kids starting off. Our reading data, like I said, is not the September. If you go to the math, it's a little bit more concerning, but we know across the board the math is where we need the most work. Like I said, this is September data, but not October. When you look at it through the whole first quarter, we're already working well for the goals. We're working hard. Any specific questions about?
One of the things that earlier today, we met as part of the REC. We met with the dean of the College of Education at Western New Mexico University. And one of the things that they're asking for is, what can they do to better prepare our teachers? This is one of the areas we talked about is, we spend so much time teaching teachers how to teach reading, but we don't spend a lot of time teaching teachers how to teach math. And so I was surprised to learn that the state of New Mexico only requires 6 hours of math. And, if you really stop to think about, the quality of our teachers being able to teach math, we're seeing some of that. And so Western, I guess, requires 9 hours, but the state only requires 6. And I thought that was really interesting. And so that could be part of the problem, of what we're seeing statewide, because as you know, it's, statewide, our math scores are not well.
Yeah.
And so ours are, we struggle a little bit more, and some of that's just due to the demographics that we serve. But we're working really hard. Like I said, we're doing professional development. We're trying to take advantage of everything that we can to have teachers build their craft of instruction.
Wouldn't the state figure that out eventually? 6 hours?
Yeah, right?
And I don't know if those are even method courses. I remember.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's,
Because there's your,
Question.
there's the classes that you need for your degree, but then there's classes, for teachers on how to teach math. Very different.
exactly.
Mhm.
And for teaching, for reading, you had to take 12 hours of how to
Yeah.
teach reading, corrective reading. I mean, it's way
Right.
specific. Yeah, it's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Additionally, if I may add to that, the math, at least at NMSU that we took for educators, math 111. Was more about how to make it fun in the classroom instead of how to make it rigorous. And I mean, I went to school at
Conceptually, how to
NMSU
teach
in
it.
the 90s, so I hope it has changed, but even back then, it wasn't so that you could have a rigorous math curriculum, especially because like me as an ELL, I can barely speak English now. Back then it was even worse. And the language that you use in Spanish for math is very different from the English language that you use for math. And if you don't understand that language, you cannot make the transition from one vocabulary to the other one to be able to show that you're competent in math. So, and that's what we call bridging now, that's some of the training the teachers are going through, because we're learning that the languages don't support each other so that you can show the skill that you have in math. But yet, when I took the class, it wasn't about bridging the languages. It was just about how to make math fun in the classroom, which we want them to have fun. But I mean, in life, you have to learn in order for you to enjoy life and have fun. So I hope that by now they have made the transition as well.
If I can outside to Mr. Casillas, I think we also need, and this is something Mr. Alves has implemented with the K3 for doing that remedial training. I've always told teachers, kids need to feel now. Yeah, so they need to use a lot of manipulatives, and I know, and I'll be honest with my group, it was like pulling teeth a little bit, they need those cues, bears, buttons, projects, whatever they need to do, especially when it comes to something like fractions. They need to be able to feel that, because then that's where they make that connection to the academic math language. And even more so for the skill that you're speaking to, that we need to be able to do it in two languages.
Well, there comes a time where they need, or they should learn how to make that connection in the classroom. That's important.
Yeah, they should, every little bit help. And then we have kids that come from Mexico like I did, and we learned kilometers down there. We, everything in kilometers and kilos.
Metrics.
And then you come to the US, not everything's in miles and pounds, and understanding, it's just a different measuring system, and it's not only a language barrier now it's, it's a whole different measuring system. So, and I'm not making excuses, but it is something we have to be conscious of, is that we do, the US does complicate it with pounds and miles. If we stay with kilometers, it's all based on tens. It would make it easier for us to make that transition, but I just know that 1 mile equals 1.6 kilometers, but it took me 20 years to do, to learn that. We want kids to know that.
Still don't know it.
Did you guys know that?
Oh, if by accident, I switched the thing and it's saying I'm going 123 kilometers. I don't know how fast I'm going. And so
But it sounds fast.
yeah, it sounds fast, but it's, yeah, get it.
Okay, the next page is Rio Grande, and it's the ice station, and it's just more of what you saw on the second page that up front. And broken down by the grade levels. You have English on the top and Spanish on the bottom. And the red is concerning, and so we're still trying to figure that out. Octavio talked about working with the literacy coach that's been assigned to them. And so they're really attacking this from many different areas. And so it'll be interesting to see where they land when they have 2 data points. Any questions on that? Okay.
And once again, if you look at the fourth grade, when they took it in English, 60% of the students were in the red. And then they take it in Spanish, only 41%, so that's 20%, and that's, that's just depending on how students were feeling on that day, but that's a big percentage, that's a big difference, and it's all based on language. It's all about language barrier.
And the next page, we actually start seeing iReady data. And so the first page is on reading for Rio Grande. And up on the top, what you'll see is the overall. So that's all 3 grade levels. That's the overall. And then the placement by domain. And then you have grade level at the bottom. So 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade and how they fare. And
You
so
guys aren't using IMESA anymore, right?
I'm missing them. So the IMSA, we just felt like we needed to do something different. And so this is one of the approved assessments that PED does approve. And we felt that it would give us better data. And so so far it has, it's given us a lot more data that the teachers are using during PLC time to be able to disaggregate what's going on and the different levels and how does it tie into MLSS and what are some of the interventions that we need to be doing. So, Mr. Casillas? Isaac, if you can scroll up some more. I'm sorry, scroll down. You meant scroll down.
The other way, the other down.
I think the most impressive is 3rd grade.
Keep going.
63% when they took it in English, 63% were in the red, and then they take it in Spanish, and it's only 26%. It's even, it's less than half.
There you go.
And so that, like I said, that's all the language barrier, and it's something that we keep working with the training that we're getting from Eureka and from, the training that we're getting is helping us make those bridges. And when we look, even when we correlate that with language, with the ELA, the high frequency words is what we're trying to do within the classroom, so that when students see in math, it says what is the weight or what are the pounds, or compute this, so that students know what they're being asked to do, because a lot of the times, because of a language barrier, they can't even understand the question, so therefore they can't even answer it. And that is not that they don't know math, it's just figuring out what are they asking me. But it's like I said, I'm not making excuses, because this is just where we're starting out. But by the end of the year, with the training that we're having with the teachers, not only the ones being done by the state, but the work that I do with the teachers, is we're gonna see progress, because we're focusing a lot. One of the things Ms. Rogers and I talked about is having a word wall, but not the way we had word walls in the past, where you made this pretty word wall on your wall in the classroom, and then you put words on there that you maybe interacted with a few times a year. Now the word walls are interactive, so if I have a student, when I was training teachers, you have a student and you have them put the word on the wall, compute, and it's not only compute and then understand the definition, but also go in there and break it by syllables, so that students can then work on that awareness, which is something that they need to continue to know what to do as they learn the other language. So when they identify your word, they see a word that is new to them and they don't understand it, they're not stuck, because they have the phonemic awareness to say, okay, I see 2 syllables, or I see 3 syllables, and I can see compute, and they can make the sound, and then they can figure out what it means from the prefix and the suffix. So it's taking the word wall beyond having a word wall, a word that you see on the wall. It's interactive now, so that you can go and you can write it, and then you break it in syllables. And when you do it, when you have a student go up there and do it, the students that are learning English, then they see that process and they hear that process. So the visual learners and the auditory learners are now getting not only hearing it from the teacher, seeing the students work it, and so they're being exposed to the same word. And so that by the exit tick that you have, the mastery checks, that at the end of the teacher, before the students get released, we're all gonna repeat the 5 words that we learned today. Compute, you tell me how many syllables. 2, 1, which is the first syllable? Mario, which is the second syllable? Pute, and then Jose, what does it mean together? So it's that not only do you see the word and you do the word once, but you revisit it over and over and over, and it's that practice that's got ingrained in their brain, so when they see the word and the test computes, I remember that word and I know what it is because I got a lot of practice on it and I got a clear understanding of it, so that's what we're doing in math. It's not only just solving the problem, it's understanding, reading the problem so you understand it. There's a lot of reading in math now.
But going back to the reading, 150 kids, so what I'm hearing is that it's more word recognition than the comprehension, that why we have 150 some students that are 2 or 3 grade levels below? Is that the reason
Yes.
why?
Well, it is why it's phonics is one of the big problems because the phonics in Spanish are very different from the phonics in English. So Spanish is a syllabic language.
But are they
and-
taking it in English and Spanish? When I look at that overall, does that include it? It doesn't matter what language it is, it's just it could have been in English or Spanish, but what I'm seeing here, there's 100 and, I don't know, 159 students, something like that, that are 2 grades or 3 or more grades below. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
seeing?
Yeah, you're talking about the 93 plus the 66.
Yes, so, and that is due to, what I hear you saying, you're doing the word well, so it's word recognition, them not
Yes.
able to decode, and that it's not really the vocabulary, the comprehension, and so those strategies for 3rd and 4th grade are kind of, is that a focus or not a focus?
It is the focus, and actually, it's not even, you can't even get to reading comprehension if students can't break the word down, and that's phonics. So it's going, and it's not going below, but it's giving them, reinforcing those foundational skills so that they can then get into be able to recognize the high frequency words and they can get into the reading comprehension. And it is a lot of vocabulary work that we have to do, and it is done, we're doing it not only in math, we're doing it in the reading class. And that's why I sent the librarian even to that training so that, and the librarian and everybody else, so that we have that practice in the morning and then we have that practice in the afternoon, because that word recognition is the one that allows students to have that reading comprehension that they need so that they can be able to perform on the test and know what they're being asked to do. And it is, President Marcus, it is shocking. I mean, I look at this and 150 students, out of basically 250, 150 of them are still struggling 2 grade levels below. It is shocking, but that is according to structured literacy coach, that is the best way to address it for now.
Okay.
Mr. Marcus, and it didn't come out on this.
Yeah, the domain, I
you know,
didn't
but
see that.
and I don't know if it didn't even come out on this, but you know, each one of these areas, the domains identifies a different area. So the first one that there's no data on there is phonemic, phonological awareness, and the second one is phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension, literature, and informational text. And so it gives us that information here to really
But the
focus.
first one, there's no data. 'cause that's
There's
not
nothing
really-
because
that's not
there's-
really assessed, but they're finding that's an issue. And that's why they're addressing it, because he was talking about the phonemic awareness, the word recognition, even though it wasn't tested. Because there was no data there. And I figured I couldn't see the domains, but I thought, okay.
So it gives them the focus
So the
area.
last one, what's the last?
The last
domain?
one is informational text.
Okay, so I would hope that a big focus is focusing on that informational text, that nonfiction text and the different text structures that they're gonna encounter during their reading and finding out the main idea, the supporting key details, that in itself, you know what I mean, and the vocabulary. So, yeah, so that last one is also key, correct? I mean, so
Oh, yeah,
that may help,
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, and, you know, along with comprehension, overall
Mhm.
comprehension, and, you know, where they're doing really well is high frequency words. You can see that's the third one there.
Yeah, they're doing
And-
well in there, right?
Yeah.
But
And
that's the focus.
And
For math,
and I
I
think-
guess you meant for math.
And I think, yes,
Okay.
and so one of the things also with if you look at the grade level information, 3rd grade is actually, that's probably the highest I've seen 3rd grade.
Yes.
You know, especially at beginning of year. And so, so it tells me that we've got a good group of 3rd graders, the 2nd graders that came into 3rd grade.
Coming in and have that, okay.
Better prepared, thank you. And then the next page is the math, and
Yeah.
you know, as we've talked, you know, it's It's been challenging, to say the least. But I'm going to, and the same thing, if I can get there, so on the domains, again, it didn't print on this page for some reason. But I'm looking at it, and that first one is numbers and operations. The second one is algebra and algebraic thinking. And the third one is measurement and data, and the fourth one is geometry. So again, it's those areas that we can really look at, really hone in, you know, because if you don't have some of those foundational pieces, then it's hard for them to move on into the other areas. Okay.
Right.
All right.
If I may, add on this, numbers and operations is one of the components of math where it's loaded with a lot of language about, you know, this is what you have to do for this to solve this problem. And so that one is one that's highly, they're all affected a lot by language, by vocabulary, but numbers and operations is one of the areas where the students really need to know. You have that bridge to go from English to Spanish to English to be able to do whatever it is to being asked to do, compute or add, or, you know, what is it that's gonna happen if you throw a ball? And I don't think it's a good example because I never figured that question out in college. You throw a ball against the wind that's coming, you know, the ball weighs 2 pounds and the wind's coming, you know, at 6 miles per hour against you, but it's nonetheless, students really need to understand, have a good concept of math and language in order to be able to perform the work that they're being asked to do.
And we'll move on to middle school reading. Overall, they're looking at 14% proficiency at this point, beginning of the year. You look at the placement by domains, it's the same domains. And middle school's doing really well in phonics. As they should, you know, by the time they get to middle school, and high frequency words. So, you know, it's the other areas that they're really working on. And you can see the grade level data down at the bottom, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so, Ms. Perry, would you like to elaborate?
We actually were kind of upset about this data when we got it because our end of year data for reading, we made a lot of gains and we had less than 30% and less than 20% in the red at the end of the year. So this was surprising to our teachers, but we know that a lot of the things that we did last year for reading, we're still doing those things to move our kids. And also we have social studies and science on board, helping to teach new strategies, math, annotating the text, etc. I always say that, annotating the text and doing things like that. The math, I'm gonna go get questions on reading.
No, just that informational and the narrative, I mean, and the literature and that's.
Yes.
You know, informational text, one of the things that they do, and we monitor real closely, and we don't have the data for this on that, is the Achieve 3000, because that's all about informational text. And so it monitors Lexile scores according to that informational text, and we monitor that month to month and see, you know, how are the kids doing overall with their Lexile scores.
What's been cool about the Achieve 3000 data is that we see our L's and our mainstream moving either at the same rate or our L's outperforming our mainstream kids a lot of times on Achieve. So that's what they're thinking about that. We're knowing that by month to month we can track it.
So do you attribute these high numbers, does language barrier have a lot to do with that? With these high numbers, like 172 students that are 2 grade levels or more?
So they really have to read high level text. The academic language and vocabulary is a lot higher. So if you don't have the stamina or you don't have the skill for those kinds of words and things, then it's gonna be, yeah. And so that's what we're seeing, and so we're doing a lot in academic language. And then this new program, where this assessment came from, iReady, it has some really super fantastic, like, intervention pieces to it. And so we're actually putting more time in the day for kids to be able to use that lesson.
And I'm gonna assume that the majority of these students are taking it in English at the middle school. Yeah, I mean, that, it is a vocabulary issue and comprehension. That's, I mean, that's what it is.
And this is not my school, but if I may, help out with this. So BICS is the basic intercommunication skill that students learn, you know, in the lower grades, and then you get to count the cognitive academic language proficiency. That's why some of these scores are lower, because now when they get tested, the academic language that's being used in the test is actually elevated as well.
No,
So
but
they are
we
making
understand that, but
progress.
what are we doing to build that vocabulary? What vocabulary strategies? I think we all understand that. That's what we're saying, but what strategies are in place to deal with the help? I mean, that's the big question. That's, I'm just trying to say, yeah, I mean, like you really have to focus on that and focus on the vocabulary and what vocabulary strategies and how are teachers directly teaching the vocabulary? Are they just giving them or look up a definition in the dictionary, or are they giving a friendly student? Yeah, I mean, those vocabulary strategies, how you're directly teaching, explicitly teaching that vocabulary is what's really going to get us to where we need to be. Good. Yeah, that
Is there
explicit
other
teaching.
schools that are having the same
Oh, yeah.
problem? And are
Yes.
do they have, what are they using?
So
I mean,
here's.
are we communicating with other schools?
Here's what we need to keep in mind with the demographics of our kids. Is that we've got over 50% of our kids that are identified else. 50%, you know, I don't know very many districts across the state of New Mexico that have that kind of percentage of kids. And so, you know, having that kind of, you know, our approach has to be a little bit different because we have more of a need for that academic language development. And so what we know from research is, you know, it takes, you know, on the low end, about 5 years to reclassify, on the high end, up to 10 years. And so, you know, people always say, well, 7 years. Well, 7 years is really, you know, where they came up with that number is, you know, it's halfway between 5 and 10, right? And but one of the things that we aspire to do is to make sure that kids are reclassifying in 5 years. That's where we want to be. And then the other thing that we have to take in consideration, as Amber just mentioned, is language becomes more complex the higher the grade levels. Because now you're at the secondary level, you're dealing with subjects that are specific to the class that are taught. So for example, now you start dealing with not just mathematics, but now maybe geometry, maybe algebra. You know, it's certain classes, science, maybe biology, maybe chemistry. So as the kids progress in grade level, the classes, you know, not only become more challenging, but the language complexity also increases. And so it's imperative that we've got to have academic language development. And so if you remember several months back when we talked about the maps, the curriculum maps that are being developed in each one of our grade levels, there is a component for academic language development. Same thing with our MLSS. There has to be some type of academic language development included in all that.
I guess my question would be, is there any other school out there that has something that works, that has the same demographic as us? Like,
I think
On the
everybody.
border.
Gadsden School District,
yeah, you know,
Well,
they're highly similar to us. The Gadsden School District has, they're seasonal, they have seasonal workers, they have kids that are there all year round. And I think it's the same. I would like to see their numbers compared to ours. The sizes of schools are similar to,
are they a 3 and 4 school?
they're a little bigger,
They're
but
bigger.
they're like small, the elementary schools and stuff are somewhat similar.
There's some similarities and, every district has something a little bit different that they're using. I can say that, if you remember, we're projecting that middle school is going to land in the summative assessments want to become official. I think they were at 40%. 40% is good.
Yep.
I mean, that they've really have over the last couple of years have really done really well with their reading. And one of the things, we mentioned the Achieve 3000 program, but one of the things that I can say about that is that there is a 90%. Now think about this, 90%. I don't know of any tools out there that have a 90% correlation rate. So once the Achieve 3000 program identifies kids to be college and career ready, which means grade level, 90% of them are probably going to score proficient in the summative assessment. That's what we're seeing right now, not just in at the middle school, but also at the high school. And so if we want a predictability of what we can expect, it's not perfect, but 90%, that is a high correlation. They say if you're above 70%, that is a really good tool. What we're experiencing is 90%. And so everything that they're doing, I know that's not the only thing the middle school is doing. Tish and Amber can talk to you more about what they're doing, but I have to say, whatever they're doing, it's working.
So what you're saying is this 14% is gonna go up by about 36%. No,
I'm
no,
hoping.
no, that's
I'm
not why I
hoping.
heard 40.
You know?
Nice, no, yeah.
And it's hard to
Yeah.
compare, where they
Yeah.
were last year at this time because we switched the tests, right?
Yes.
And so it's hard to, if we did that, we would probably be comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, but we are monitoring the Lexile and what I have seen, and I say the program, the Achieve 3, but it's really the Lexile scores. Because that's what's being measured. When we say college and career ready, it is a certain Lexile score that tells us whether they're college or career ready. And so that's what we continue to monitor. That's what we monitor on a monthly basis. Okay.
So we do have currently something in place that's gonna help us
Yes,
move these numbers.
yes, absolutely. Okay. Math is a little bit different. It's a little different story. We continue to struggle. And the struggle, I talked to several of the math teachers from the middle school last month. And they're frustrated. They're working hard and they're committed. And they, some of them just have that frustration of, gosh, what do we need to do? And so I know for the secondary teachers, coming to that professional development, I know they really, really appreciated it. And so I'm hoping that that's going to help them, be more effective with our kids in the classroom and get the results that we know that they can get. So Amber?
Yeah, good news because this was not good news, obviously. And it was not a surprise because it was matches that are in here. Assessment I would just have. But the good news is that this iReady, to me, I could not wrap my head around how you teach to the grade level standards, which keep getting harder every year for kids. Whenever we never stopped after they missed the math 2 years of math to teach them what they miss. So today we did have a meeting from iReady, and the lady, she really directed my teachers, this is what every period should look like. And when you get to the part for what they've missed, like those gaps, this is what iReady does. It gives you those groupings already. It tells you the lesson to teach those things. And so I think they felt a little overwhelmed because it's like, whoa, but they were already on fire because I think they really thought, we worked so hard last year that they were gonna see better results, and they didn't. And so now this is like saying, you have to change something up. We had already really started talking about, you've got to do the small groups. It's part of MLSS, and you can't do it without the small groups. But as secondary, we don't do small groups. That's like centers, right? But yeah, we're gonna do small groups. And then the lady today really showed them what that needs to look like. they have more questions, they need more PD, but they're like, okay, we're gonna do this. And again, we're fitting in extra time during the day for our kids to, if they practice the iReady 35 to 45 minutes a week, that's supposed to increase their growth. But also, one thing that was very cool that she said, you just have to be patient. If they can reach the kids, like all the teachers can move a kid 1 year, right? But if we can move them a little bit extra, which is what we call stretch growth. I hope I'm not talking too much about. If you can move them to that stretch growth in 6th grade, and then the same thing moves to stretch growth in 7th grade, by 8th grade, if they do it again, they can become proficient. So 3 years, but to a kid who is 2 or more grade levels below the grade level of reading or math, I mean, like that's huge.
Mhm.
That's amazing. So we're really putting a lot of hope in this, and my teachers are like, come on, bring it, let's go, they're ready, they're the right people. So we are excited about that.
And it sounds like you're putting in those supports for them, giving them the extra time and the way that they can do that. Okay.
Big phone calls home. We already had a meeting, and this was, my teacher wanted this meeting with the parents. If your kid was below grade level, you need to come to the schoolhouse. We need to talk to you. We need you to help us out at home. You can be doing this, and it's with the
Oh,
iReady.
good.
But yeah, so I think that we're on the right track, even though it does look very scary.
Thank you.
It's just difficult to play catch up.
It really-
It's very
It is.
difficult. Yeah.
And reading is a little bit different, but math it's scary crazy.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, and then we move on to the high school. And
Yay.
high school just implemented a new assessment program as well. Horizons, is that right? Horizon. Okay, not horizons.
Yeah, right.
And so this is all brand new information for us and we just did this in October this month. Last week.
Oh, good.
So this is hot off the press.
Awesome.
So.
Correct.
So Brandy, you want to talk a little bit about your reading and writing and math?
So we were talking about the achieve correlation right now, our students overall, we're about 35%. College and career readiness school-wide, so this kind of aligns with that. So just to explain the levels, level 1 is far below, level 2 is nearing, level 3 is proficient, and level 4 is advanced. So that kind of aligns with it. We were pretty surprised by these results. Because we don't get to see our freshman data or our senior data. We really just get to see our sophomore summative data and our junior summative data. So this is the first time that we gave a SAT-like assessment to all grade levels. So overall, typically, I mean, you guys have seen our data, we have about 88% of our kids in red. And so this was nice to see it kind of spread out. We were able to, on our data dive day, we were able to meet with Horizon and dig deeper into the assessment and even just understand the assessment and understand the tool. And we found out that, you know, we can really rely on our social studies teachers to help us out with this data specifically. So when I met with social studies yesterday, they use a tool called DBQ that aligns perfectly to help us out, where they're taking different document sources and synthesizing information.
What is that called?
DBQ, I can't remember what the
Okay, that's
DBQ
great.
stands for. But essentially what they're doing is they're taking 3 different document sources, synthesizing data, and bringing it together and actually writing about it. And that was one of our areas of weaknesses on the reading SAT was the rhetorical, they didn't call it analysis, a rhetorical synthesis. So on the SAT, the kids are given like the bulleted information or notes, and then they're given a question where they're having to kind of synthesize this information, but all the answers are correct. What they have to choose is the one that's most effectively represents what they're asking for. So that's how it gets deeper into it. So
Just the PD and understanding how the SAT assessment is set up was so enlightening to teachers and will help switch their instruction and help the students so that we always talk about like the testing platform shouldn't get in the way of the students demonstrating their knowledge. So, and I think that's what's happened a lot at the high school because we're just thrown into this assessment and we don't really know anything about it. And another thing is SAT just switched their assessment, revamped it completely. So this last administration was the first time that they revamped it. So we feel pretty confident in moving forward now. We don't feel like our target is moving. We kind of know what it is. We know what we need to do. And we're ready to move forward with it. Yeah, do you have any questions on your reading? That's our overall, that includes all the grade levels.
Great.
The next page, the last page.
Our math, we know we struggle with math because we keep hearing all day long or all night long. Right now, we're sitting about at 14% proficient. And when we dive into this as well, we did find that a lot of our kids struggled towards the end of the assessment. They left a lot of blanks, so they ran out of time. So, that's something the math department is working on, is speeding up that process, letting the kids know that it is time, you can't spend a whole lot of time on that. And then just we worked with Pat Cardin from, for our math development, and she gave us a protocol called the thinking protocol, where you actually give a kid the test questions or a test question and they think through what's the misconception, where did it go wrong, and then they go through this whole analysis. It only takes 15 minutes, which the teachers were surprised. They figured it would take longer, but it's only a 15-minute lesson. So it's something that they'll start incorporating into their daily lessons. We also found out that there's a section on the SAT that's really devoted into data analysis. And we're really gonna reach out to our science teachers to help us with that. It's a lot of probability statistics, ratios, that sort of thing, but the science department is on board to help us attack that. This next one is broken up by grade level. I left off the 12th grade, but the first group is 12th grade, 11th grade, 10th grade, and 9th grade. We are fixing to give the PSAT actually next week to our 10th graders. So they'll be taking that on Wednesday. It's also broken up by math is in blue and reading and writing is in orange. So we just kind of zoom in on our 10th graders because that's what's on our radar right now since they're testing next week. If you look at math, there's 32% proficient and 31% nearing proficient. And since we have our math interventionist, we've always talked about how to best utilize that. So currently, for the past 3 weeks, he's actually been working a lot with our sophomores since they were gonna be testing. And specifically those local kids to get them to move. So we're hopeful on how they'll able to score in that. And we want to stick to our 10th graders again, since they are assessing in reading. We do see they're actually performing lower in reading than they are in math. And historically, that class has been our struggle in reading. In reading is that sophomore class, the current sophomore right now. One thing, Mr. Marcus, when you were talking earlier about the academic language, we have a new ELA teacher and that teaches freshmen and sophomore and 9th and 10th grade, and he brought that up during data analysis that it was a lot of vocabulary, and he's asking for materials to do Latin root.
Oh, okay, cool.
All of that,
Yeah.
so we found something that we think we're gonna work, so we'll propose it to be perfect to be purchased, but he says, you know, that he sees it right now that that's the biggest thing for our buck. Is if we can teach kids different words, go with the Latin roots and suffixes, that we can get a lot of that knocked out right away. Let's see. There's a lot of data there. Moving on to our juniors, because that's what gets reported to the state, that they take the SAT. The state doesn't really look at the PSAT, it's an optional assessment, we like to give it because like I said, we didn't have anything before. But if we focus on our 11th graders, just looking at math, we do have only 5% proficient right now, but look at our nearing proficient, we're at 43. So we were really talking to the math department, the algebra 2 teacher and Mr. Hernandez on how to really move those bubble kids over so that we can see some really good growth in our math.
It's a good strategy.
And right now, our junior class has always been one of our stronger classes in reading, and they're already at 36% with 33 nearing proficient. So working with the language arts department on how to move those 33 over. Our seniors are doing pretty good in reading. A big part of the SAT we found out too was mechanics. It's not like a huge part, but one of the bigger chunks is mechanics and grammar and that sort of thing. And our junior teacher and our senior teacher really push a program called No Red Ink. And that really works on reinforcing those grammatical skills. So for instance, they'll be given a close reading prompt and it'll ask them how they need to punctuate the next part of the sentence or what transition word to use and that sort of thing. And No Red Ink is great at that. So we were attributing that 39% proficient partly to that faithful use of No Red Ink in the junior and senior department. So, and I know middle school is so we have to see that proficient.
Nice.
First there.
Good.
You guys have any questions?
I don't remember.
I don't know, I guess it's for every one of you, since you guys carry a lot of responsibility. How, or anybody, you can answer however you want, but how much does repetition come into play as far as learning is concerned?
That practice over and over again.
Yeah.
It's good in the excuse me.
No, go ahead.
It's good at the elementary level, it's good as repetition can be a good thing as intervention. Because when we do interventions, it's a repetition intervention, right? Are they succeeding? Are you creating that exit ticket? Do you have a criteria of success of, are they meeting that intervention? If you're just hammering it home over at least for 2 or 3 weeks, weeks, and then they're not getting it, then it's either testing or you move on to something else. More times than not, repetition, Mr. Montes, is good because it also identifies some of those kids that no matter how many interventions we can do, there's something else there that has to get referred to special services for testing purposes. So repetition can be a good thing.
I remember when my kids were at that grade, repetition worked.
Yes, those old skill and drill methods
Yes.
that they
Yep.
used to use.
Yes.
So to me, I call that grassroots education. To me, it has gone away, but it really needs to be brought back. Kids don't know how to do basic facts or multiplications the way we were brought up doing that. And that is such a foundational skill from kindergarten to 12 because it lends itself to all of the maths from basic to geometry to calculus, so. No, I totally agree. Repetition can be a good thing. On the opposite end, it can also be a bad thing. Because if you drill it too much, kids learn to hate what they have to learn.
Mhm.
You see, so you have to kind of switch it. I know that's finished. But
Oh, it's a fact.
I think we see repetition in everything, in many aspects of life. If you look at sports, they do the same play over and over and over because that repetition is, how you get to finesse whatever it is that you're doing. So I do agree with Mr. Mesa that it's one of those things that those things in the past, they used to work for us. I don't know why we were taught to get away from them. And I think it's because we have to cover so many standards and benchmarks and teach so many skills that you don't have the time to do that repetition. But we actually talked about that at the last PLC. And one of the examples I used was when I was in a kid in baseball, I was a terrible batter. And the only way I was able to get a little bit better, I was never really good at it, was, you know, the coach after practice would have me stay and do batting practice over and over. And you think it's really simple. They throw the ball at you and you swing the bat. It was reading the ball, which was a curve, which was a slider, you know, what's it gonna do? And it's that repetition over and over. And like I said, I was still terrible at batting, but I did get better. But I do know that repetition is important in the elementary. I don't know about high school, but in the elementary levels, it is something that we have to have time to, you know, practice over and over and over.
And if I may agree with Mr. Macias,
That I was a bad batter?
yeah. No, that, you know, expectations on kids from kinder through 12th grade have just gotten exponential. They're very high. There's a lot of demand. Kids are being crammed in with a lot. You know, like I said, I was blown away by pre-K because I thought, wow, simplicity at its best and it's working. It's when they start moving up that we start seeing those separations and issues. But I think that there's still a lot, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but you still got those kids who went through COVID, and those kids from 4th grade to 12th grade, they're gonna need, if we could give them like 6 to 8 months extra of education within that same year, but we've only got 12 months, they could be caught up. You know what I mean? But the fact that they're learning so much or needing to know so much, I get blown away when I walk into a classroom and they're doing their reading math. And they're teaching place value and basic that it's all together. Or when I was a teacher in the classroom, each one of those skills was compartmentalized. We taught place value before we moved forward with everything else. And now it's just all like this. So they're having to sort and keep a lot. It is a good skill because it allows them to think critically and analytically. But they're not all kids there. I mean, look at our acceleration rates in Amy's and my school. We have kids who are high, but a small percentage. But we also have to continue to accelerate those kids and challenge them. And not by giving them paper, but by giving them projects that they can use those acceleration pieces in. You know, so there's a number of ways to do it. It's just as educators and administrators, we have to come to that consensus. I love iReady. I used it in Cruces. It's an excellent program. And I've shared with these guys, once you acclimate, once you're able to work the program and get in there, they dissect everything. One student report, if they really print it out, it's 29 pages. It breaks it down per student. That's how involved it is. But I think I say come back to grassroots, you know, and start with basics.
One more question for all of you. Different schools, different demographics. Are you all communicating amongst each other to help push success in the district?
Yes, we are. We have the meetings, weekly meetings with Mr. Chavez where we have these discussions as a group. We own our data. There's no excuses. We own our data. We know where we are. We know it's our responsibility. And those are the discussions that we're having, that it's nobody's responsibility but ours to figure out a way to reach our students, because we have committed to this community that we're going to be the best educators the kids can have. And so we have those discussions, and it is not, like Ms. Perry has said in the, before, when we look at this data, it's not easy. It really isn't. I know I go home and I take the work with me, and we are very committed to, finding a way to raise our students so that when they graduate from the high school here in Hatch, that they can find jobs, whether they stay in Hatch or they go elsewhere. Not only do they have the skills, the social skills, but they have the academic skills to succeed. So yes, we have these discussions that, it is difficult to see this data, but we are committed that we're gonna figure this out. And then we're gonna, we're gonna find a way.
So one of the things with our teachers, Mr. Montes, is, having the professional development in math, having all of our secondary teachers right here, working together. So middle school and high school teachers. All our elementaries, Garfield, Hatch Elementary, and Rio Grande all working together. And the feedback that I received from the teachers has just been, it's been very, very positive. It's like they feel like they're all working together. They're not just, in their school, and they do a good job with their school and they do what they have to do through their PLCs and everything like that. But the feedback that I received of being able to come together 612 and K 5 was just a lot of really, really positive feedback.
And I'm glad to hear that because every individual here has something to offer.
Mhm.
And if you guys are offering it to each other, it takes a team.
And it takes time, and like these individuals here, they're all, I'm just gonna say it, they're all busting their butts.
Yeah.
We've got our teachers that are busting their butt, and as Mr. Casillas said, we own the data, right? And we're doing everything that we can. We've got to work smarter and not harder. And sometimes, it's differentiating between what does that mean? And what are the tools that we need and that sort of thing. But, it doesn't happen overnight. And because you're talking about a systemic change that needs to happen, in some cases, a whole paradigm shift that you're looking for. And so it's just looking at things differently, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of good things that are going on in our district. We have pockets of greatness, but there's areas that we have areas of growth. And I think we're on the right track. I think we're moving forward. And I really do think we'll see some growth this year.
If I may add just one more thing, and then I'll be quiet, saying talk a lot. There are a lot of skills that are not tested, that our students are learning. I can say that at RGE, we have the grandma switch. They come in, they work with us for Snack Shack. They make popcorn. When I grew up, and you had an elder walk into the house, you as a child, you have to stand up. Buenas tardes, ¿cómo está? Pase, le sientes a lot of respect that our students, not all our students. So, we have our grandmas that come in, and I know they're from Hatch, and they come in and then they make the popcorn. The kids are interacting with these older women who are volunteering, and the kids are learning to support them when they come in. Now they know they want to volunteer to bring out the tables, to bring out the popcorn machine, to help them out. And those are skills that we may not test, but those are skills that our students should have. My family and I took a trip in a few years back in Albuquerque to Santa Fe on the train. And it was baffling to me that as older people got on the train, the young people sat and they didn't even offer their seat. And those are things that maybe they don't get tested on. But when I got up and other kids saw me got up, I thought they would get up and offer the seat, and they didn't. And those are the things that those are the morals and the ethics that our kids should have, and they don't have them, and that's not what they're tested on. But I can tell you that at RGE, at least, we're teaching our kids that. We're teaching respect. We're teaching, that you're one community and that you come together. I have the ESL classes in the afternoon where the parents come in to learn, and they bring their kids, and their kids sit and do homework. So not only am I teaching ESL classes to adults, but the kids may raise a hand and say, Mr. Can you help me with this as well? So we have two teachers. There's just so much goodness going on. And when you look at this data, you think, we're failing. We're not failing the kids. It's just, there's so much going on, but our kids are learning a lot of other skills that they won't be tested in, but they will need those skills in life so that they can be respectful young people, that aspire to have something in life, but it's not gonna be tested. So our data does not show the work that we're doing with the community and how committed we are as educators. I can tell you that, I'm happy to belong to this group. I'm very fortunate to be in Hatch.
Frustration is normal, okay? If you don't get frustrated, you're not normal. It's okay. It's a struggle.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Thank you all. Very, very good. And good luck, and we'll see you in 3 months again, right? Roughly up to another quarter, February, probably.
When will
When do we give
MOY happen?
those?
January.
It's about February?
February, okay.
Sounds good, but greatly appreciate it, and thank you all. Appreciate that. Okay, so I will entertain the motion to adjourn our work session. Moved by Miss Garay. Seconded by Mr. Montes. I'll go and take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
I do have something for you guys. I volunteered our district. to host.
What was you? Ray had said we need to do that and all of a sudden they announced it.
Yeah, no, I-
Thing yesterday.
I called the regional president, I
you
told
called
him, hey, you know what, don't even.
The hard copy?
Hatch is willing to host it, so. he said,
You volunteered for what?
He's the one that